Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Phase 2, Lesson 3, Command Authority versus Demand Authority. This is the last lesson in Phase 2, which we focused on individual kids, right? So the first lesson was about their individual value, knowing that they are gold and they have intrinsic value. The second lesson was on how to increase their desire to want to learn, from a bottle to a cup to a bowl. And so I think that was a pretty good lesson. This one I want to focus on our authority as educators. Introduction: the authority question. Educators inherently hold authority based on their role: teacher, coach, administrator. This positional authority can demand basic respect and compliance. However, relying only on position limits true influence. Real transformation in a student's behavior or attitude comes not through demands, but through relationships. As I look back at the teachers that really had an influence on me, they definitely had that demand respect because they had that position over me, but they also had command respect. They had my attention because of the way they treated me. They did that through relationship. And so I want to break down the difference between demand respect and command respect. I think you have to have both as a teacher, but sometimes we neglect that command respect. Let's understand the difference between command respect and demand respect. Demand respect says, follow my rules because I said so. Command respect says, understand this value because it will make your life better and I care about you. Demand respect is based on position, title. Command respect is based on personal investment and emotional credibility. Demand respect produces short-term compliance. Command respect produces long-term buy-in. With demand respect, you get rules without relationship. With command respect, you get relationships that support the rules. Demand respect, it leads to silent resistance and surface obedience. With command respect, it leads to trust, influence, and lasting change. One time someone said, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. I remember sitting there thinking, that's exactly how I felt growing up. That all these authorities in my life, including family, but also in school, wanted me to obey a certain set of rules, and they wanted me to be obedient to them, but really didn't want to spend time with me. Like, they wanted these rules to be followed and obeyed, but they didn't want to invest in me. And so let's take a look at that. And I think this is the reason why rules without relationship lead to rebellion. You cannot withdraw emotional transparency from a student if you haven't invested relational trust into them. Every correction, every deeper conversation, every vulnerable moment is a withdrawal from a relational bank. Here's the natural challenge. If you haven't made deposits through honor, respect, listening, and understanding, you may be trying to make withdrawals from an empty account. And that leads to a breakdown in communication. When students feel that your authority is based only on your title, not your investment in them, they will protect themselves with emotional walls. This is often misinterpreted as rebellion or disrespect, when in reality it's self-protection. Let me go through the 5 levels of communication. Number 1, basic facts. Did you turn your homework in? That kind of stuff. Number 2, logistics. What time is practice over? Number 3, preferences, opinions. What do you think about this assignment? And number 4, personal thoughts, like, maybe I'm struggling with stress. And number 5 is when it gets really deep, like those deep emotions. I'm scared, I'm sad. Here's a very important key point. You can demand level 1 and 2 communication through position, but you must earn level 3 to 5 communication through relationship. I think that's one of the hardest things to do as a teacher, is to have both, right? Because you have to have that demand authority, otherwise it's chaotic, right? There needs to be accountability in the building. You need to be able to make sure kids are physically safe, so you have a mandate to make that happen. So your demand position is definitely needed in that situation. But when we're going beyond that to try to extract emotion and feelings and engage students a little more deeper, you have to do that in a command position with relationship, right? So let's talk about some practical ways to do that. Number 1, listen to understand, not to respond. Too often we listen only long enough to form a rebuttal or advice. True understanding means entering their world, even if we don't always immediately solve the problem. Students don't always need a solution, they need to feel heard and understood first. Number 2, deposit into the relational bank. Acknowledge their feelings without judgment. Ask curious, non-threatening questions. Invest time without an agenda. Celebrate small wins and personal progress. Small investments can yield big results. Number 3, speak their language even if you mess it up. Show a willingness to understand their culture, music, humor, and trends. Like speaking a foreign language imperfectly, the attempt itself communicates honor and respect. Students don't need you to be perfect. They need you to care enough to try. But don't be this guy. Listen, I put this picture, and I just wanted this picture somewhere. That's why I put it in there. Number 4, honor before correction. If you honor who they are, even when they frustrate you, you earn the right to correct when necessary. Honor builds credibility. Demand without honor builds walls. Some of the best moments of my life in learning has been when I was confronted by a person in authority, but they did it by honoring me first. They respected where I was coming from, and so they kind of earned the right to say some things to me, because when you're in that situation, it's so vulnerable when you're being corrected. And so when I felt honored as a person, they didn't take my agency from me. It went a long way. A key takeaway in this whole lesson is that you can demand obedience through your position, but you command loyalty, honesty, and engagement through relationship. Value Up educators are command leaders. We build a culture where students don't comply because they fear us, they engage because they trust us. The last section of this lesson, we're going to be talking more specifically about the accountability system that we're going to put in place. Basically, every school is different, so it's going to come across different. So I'm just going to give you the basic teaching on it, and then your school may implement it in a different way. But the idea is that we're trying to close the net, right? We're trying to make sure that every kid in the school feels like they're connected with by a trusted adult. So here's the Value Up accountability system for school staff. You don't personally need to connect with every student, but every student needs connection. It will take all of us to connect. Here's the objective: to ensure every student in the school has at least one trusted adult connection, and that all staff are actively engaged in building meaningful, supportive relationships with the students they're assigned to. The Value Up Impact Team will be contacting you monthly for updates and accountability. Here's the student staff assignment plan. The purpose is to close the net, right? So each staff member, teachers, counselors, admin, support staff, is assigned a manageable group of students, 1 to 5, depending on the ratio. Student lists should include a mix of academic performers, social leaders, at-risk students, and those often overlooked. Display these assignments on a shared staff dashboard, Google Sheet, internal portal, or designated software. Culture influences will be strategically assigned. That'll make more sense later. Number 2, initial connection plan, first 2 weeks after implementation of the system. The goal is to establish baseline connection and trust. Staff must greet their assigned students by name in the halls or at an event. Initiate at least one personal non-academic conversation with each student. Ask students about their interests, family, goals, or how they're adjusting. Log a short note in a confidential tracker or student engagement log, that kind of thing. Jasmine, she likes art, that kind of thing. So yeah, the first 2 weeks is really important to make that connection with those students. Number 3, the ongoing touch point system. Frequency is important. We want to at least make one meaningful interaction per student per week. Here's a few touch point ideas. Sit with them briefly at lunch or during an advisory time. Check in after a tough class or a moment. Encourage them at a game, performance, or some kind of event. Send a positive note home or a quick message of affirmation. Celebrate birthdays or achievements in small ways. We have to have a tracking system to make sure we're all doing this, but staff must submit a monthly connection reflection form where they highlight wins, breakthroughs, students who are hard to reach, patterns or concerns. This is not meant to badger or harass you, but good intentions are not enough to ensure success. Quarterly review with leadership. Again, all these things are going to be dependent on whether your school wants to do it this way or not. I'm going to leave it up to the schools to, implement the mechanics of this, but just the overall idea is to, keep the system active and responsive. The Value Up Impact team meets with staff individually or in teams once a quarter, just to review student connection notes, identify any unseen students, offer ideas for re-engaging disconnected youth, acknowledge staff who go above and beyond. In summary, this system works best when it's simple, not overly bureaucratic. Staff are empowered, not burdened. Leadership models the importance of a connection, and then time and recognition are built into the culture. I'm going to tell you a story. It's the Save the Starfish story. This is my take on an old story. If you're in education for very long, you're going to hear this story. It's the starfish, right? All the starfish get washed up on the beach, and little boy is down there just horrified, wanting to save the starfish. So he starts throwing them back in, and there's an old man up on the pier looking down on him, clearly has a different perspective than the little kid. So he's yelling down, you'll never be able to make a difference. You can't save them all. You might as well just give up. And the kid just ignores him and keeps throwing him back in. And I like this story because the little kid is, just seeing what's in front of him and throwing him back in. The old man comes down and gets in his face, right? And is like, you'll never make a difference. And the little boy picks up one of the starfish and says, yeah, but I can make a difference in this one. And I can make a difference in this one. And listen, I don't have a savior complex, and I don't think you should either. There's no cape on my back or your back. We're just trying to make a difference with the kids that we have in front of us. You have them for 8 hours a day, 40 weeks in a year. And what can we do during that time to maximize our time, to build that relationship with them, to help them get through this very difficult time of their life? And so that's what this has been about. I really appreciate you tuning into this and giving it your all. The next lesson, the next phase of this, we're going to be going into talking more about, corporately, how we can corporately, make a difference in their lives. So fill out the survey, and we'll see you at the next lesson.